Oh, she's ready. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to bring Marita Noon. Energy makes America great. Marita, are you with us?
I am. It's great to talk to you again.
Good morning. Or, yeah, good morning in Albuquerque. Is it
It
sunny?
is
And,
still morning in Albuquerque, New Mexico. That is true.
I got to
And
tell you,
good
I
afternoon
always
to
say
all of
this.
you there.
What's that?
I said good afternoon to all of you in Florida.
Thank you very much. And, my dream is to live on a mountaintop in New Mexico somewhere. I've always said that. I love New Mexico. I've spent a lot of time there, and it is God's country if there is such a place.
Well, I have a guest cabin on my property, which is out in the mountains in New Mexico. And, you want a little vacation and check it out? You just let me know, and the cabin is yours.
I would love that. I may take you up on that.
It's just a little one-room cabin, but it's there, and it's fully equipped.
And hopefully no internet, no phones, and no communication with the human race.
Well, it depends on what your cell phone provider is, whether you can get cell service there or not. But there is no internet and no television.
I think that would do me good. Marita, the Stone Age didn't end because we ran out of stone. And the oil age is not going to end because we're going to run out of oil, because there's an abundance of oil on this planet. But what is the future of energy?
What is the future of energy? Well, it's going to be an all of the above kind of energy future. We're going to need oil. We're going to need gas. We should be continuing to use our abundance of coal. Wind and solar fit in. They're not the solution, but there's places where they're really the best option. And so we're looking at it, and hopefully we're going to have nuclear power as a part of the energy future.
Well, we've already said there is no silver bullet of energy, and it is a best case scenario wherever that might be. And certainly coal, which is our most abundant natural resource, is that a fair thing to say?
That is a fair thing to say, and the other big factor to keep in mind with coal is that it is the least expensive. And that's one of the reasons why America has previously been such a dominant world power, is that for manufacturing and for daily life, most of our electricity is coal-fueled. Mm-hmm. And because it is so inexpensive, then we have some of the lowest, we historically have had some of the lowest energy prices in the world. And so we in America have been able to freely use energy. We are able to keep warm in the winter. We're able to keep cool in the summer. We're able to run our cell phones and our computers and our cars because we have some of the lowest priced energy in the world, and it has made us a world leader. However, currently, coming out of Washington, particularly this administration, are policies that are going to make that energy is currently making that energy so much more expensive, and is literally shutting down power plants and chasing jobs out of this country.
Which, when you sit back in your chair and you try to put your arms around that, I'm not sure there's anything stupider than our energy approach in this administration. And I guess we really have to, I want to define one thing for our listeners, and that is that all sources of energy are really just a big teapot. All they do is boil water. And that's the essence of our electricity and manufacturing base today, correct?
Yes, that is correct. As you and I were talking yesterday when we had such a great chat prior to this interview, is that the kilowatts, they don't know their DNA. The kilowatts don't know whether they came from nuclear, whether they came from coal, whether they came from wind, or whether they came from solar. They only know that they're a kilowatt. And that's what we need, is we need that energy.
Correct. And, when we think about nuclear, the first thing you think of is, oh my God, it's dangerous. When there's only been 3 Mile Island and Chernobyl, really
and
have been
then now Fukushima.
Yeah, but it wasn't really a nuclear accident. It was more a function of the tidal wave of the
Exactly.
tsunami.
And there are some very definite things that we should learn, lessons that can be learned and applied moving forward as a result of that situation.
Yeah, I mean, safer is better. I mean, everybody wants clean water, everybody wants clean air, but everybody wants to watch TV and have a light on and sit in their air conditioner house in the winter and a warm house in the warm house in the wintertime. And we just have to function correctly. Now, nuclear seems to be an alternative, but the initial cost is very expensive, correct?
Yeah, I mean, it's not as expensive as the people who are opposed to it want people to believe. I mean, honestly, I can't give you a hard number of what it would cost to build a nuclear power plant. But what I can tell you that's very interesting is, and I have a link to this is available on our website, but I have spent in New Mexico the last 10 months involved in a working group with our local utility company, because in New Mexico, and I should have looked this up to know whether this is the case in Florida, but it is in more than half the states in the country, we have our legislators voted in what is called an RPS, which stands for a Renewable Portfolio Standard. And in almost every state where these exist, which is more than half of the country, the renewable portfolio standards basically state that you have to have 15% of your energy from renewable sources by 2015, 20% by 2020. Most of them have the percentages align with the year. So I've been involved with this working group where the utility company is trying to figure out how are they going to cost-effectively meet this standard that the legislature arbitrarily voted in, like our president just this morning announced the new CAFE standard. He just comes up with an arbitrary number and says, here, you guys figure out how to make this work. Well, that's what the legislators did with this RPS. And I can tell you that we've looked at every source of energy and what it costs and how are we going to meet this so much percentage of renewable energy by such and such a date. And that nuclear comes out. They did all kinds of computer modeling. I am not a scientist. I really, frankly, can't even understand the computer modeling. But they did all of this, and nuclear comes out cheaper than wind and solar. So I don't know the exact dollars to build a nuclear power plant, but incorporating the capital cost, it still comes out cheaper.
And, it's just a shame because we have talked to the people at Indian Point. We've had them on the show a couple of times, which is just north of New York City.
Right,
and
the nuclear plant.
It's been functioning, I guess, since the 60s. Without it, New York would probably be dark. They've actually increased the capacity over the years, but yet nobody's talking about building another one, which would immediately solve their concerns because of these environment nuts. Of course, there's a place to think about having a clean environment, but there's got to be a place to do it safely. And since we have, what is it in the United States? There's averages about 2 nuclear reactors every state. It's about 100 of them.
Yes, there is about 100 of them. I think
what
it's
if
104?
Yeah, what if we had 200 of them? Would that not be better? Is not bigger better?
Yeah, after all, this is America.
Yeah, well, it used to be. But why wouldn't we just say, hey, we reduce our need for oil? But oil in generating electricity is a very small percentage, correct?
Right. I think it's only like 2%. Oil and what you have to look at, there's a difference between transportation fuel, which is oil and gasoline, and electricity. And electricity is most effectively generated from coal and nuclear and natural gas. We have natural gas has some different capabilities, different from the coal and the nuclear that make it attractive in certain uses. But we're talking different source fuels, and we're talking different uses. So when we talk about, we've got to get off of foreign oil, I was at a social event back in March. A well-to-do event in Dallas, Texas, and I was seated at this table, and I didn't know anybody at the table. You know, as you do in one of those circumstances, you go around the table and you introduce yourself, and as soon as I said what I do, a woman at the other end of the table speaks up strongly, and she says, "We have got to get off of oil." I looked at her and I said, "No, we don't have to get off of oil. We have to get off of foreign oil, but there is no reason to get off of oil. You know, at this point in time, there's no reason to be sending money to countries that hate us to buy their oil." Now, back 20 years ago, there was plenty of reason for that. A lot of people say, well, we should use theirs up and save ours. You know, and that's there's some valid thinking to that. But that time has passed because we are now funding people who hate us to buy their product when we have enough resource in America that we could basically tell them to go take a hike. I sort of got off on a tangent there. Sorry, we were talking about oil for power plants, but
yeah, but it's still energy independence in all shapes and forms. Now it's funny. Over the last couple of weeks, I've been looking at a diesel Volkswagen, which was about 48 miles to the gallon. It's a little smaller. It doesn't have quite the ride that my SUV has, but I was considering it. And then I would sit back in my chair and I said, you know, if everybody drove a diesel, would that not eliminate that we'd have to import oil? If you went, I mean, the president came out with these 54 by 2025. I mean, I don't know how you do that. Is that more of a dream or is that more of the fantasy as we talked about yesterday?
Well, I mean, you know, the reality is that he is taking away free choice from the consumer by doing that. And I'm in opposition to that just on a free market principle point. Forget the energy discussion. And if the public wants to buy fuel-efficient vehicles like the Volkswagen you're just talking about, if that's the public's biggest concern is fuel efficiency, they can go buy a diesel Jetta. They can go buy a hybrid. They can go buy a smart car if that's what the public wants. And, you know, great, it's wonderful that those options are available. And the same thing holds true for the curly Q light bulbs. If that is what the public wants, we have that option, go buy it. But to have the federal government saying, you know, basically they're saying you can't buy an SUV because the only way that they can meet those standards is they make the vehicles smaller, which means you can't fit your family in. You can't haul the stuff you haul. You can't have the comfortable ride you want because a lot of the noise dampening and so forth equipment is heavier. But it also means that you have a lighter vehicle and you have a smaller vehicle, which means you get in an accident with a semi-truck on the highway, and you're just gone. There's no maybe on survival. You're just plain gone. The statistics, the highway safety, and whatever they are called, the statistics show you get in an accident in your grandmother's old Cadillac, and the chances of you surviving are really high. You get in an accident in a little fuel-efficient vehicle, and the chances of you surviving are really low. It's just that simple. It's there in black and white. So the consumer should have that choice. And if everybody is buying small cars and the big SUVs aren't selling, the manufacturers will quit making the SUVs because they're not selling. But that is not what the data shows in America. Americans like their big cars. And, hey, we should not be told we can't drive them. If you can afford the gas, good for you. Drive